Jenny, are you into sports at all?
Yes.
Yeah? What do you like to watch?
I like to watch the World Cup when it's in season.
Yeah.
Or like when intense soccer games start, like when they're competing for something, not just for fun. You know, I like to watch baseball, basketball gets cool, Super Bowl. Has to be like
the more intense ones,
more
right?
intense,
The more
the
intense
better.
matches,
Yeah.
games. The U.S. women's national team and Mexico played against each other earlier this week, right? And the U.S. women's national soccer team lost to Mexico for the second time in history. Like, you can see them so happy. The look of defeat over here and then the happiness over here. So women's soccer is currently in the group stages of the Gold Cup, which determines which country in the Americas has the top team. Although both the U.S. and the Mexico teams were both moving on to the next stage, that clearly didn't stop either team from giving it their all during their most recent match. So Mexicans' game-winning goal was scored by none other than a player that actually used to play for the U.S. as a kid, interestingly enough.
That is.
Mayra Pelayo was born in Florida, but her Mexican roots also allowed her to claim dual citizenship in Mexico. And when she reached a more senior level, Pelayo decided that she was going to represent Mexico instead of the U.S., and thus the seeds for this historic moment were planted. Did you happen to watch this game?
I didn't, and I'm so sad that I didn't even know about it. Just can't believe that. I don't think they amplify women's soccer enough. Like, I would have loved to watch it. Like, I want to, I'm bummed. I'm bummed.
Same, girl. And the worst part is they played here in LA.
What?
Yeah.
Dude, I would have loved to see it in person.
I know. Well, you know what? We actually have someone who went to the match, and she's going to get to talk to us about what happened, the energy, like what that was like. We'd like to welcome, of course, Karina Martinez, co-founder of Drafted and fellow sports fanatic. Welcome, Karina.
Hi, Karina.
Hello, nice to be here. Nice to meet you both.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for joining. So you were at the game, right? Like, what was the energy like when Pelayo scored that second goal?
Oh my gosh. So from the get, it was so clear that there was probably an overwhelming amount of Mexican fans versus United States fans, which I've gone to a lot of friendlies, and I think this is the first time that I've ever seen a non-US team have more fans in person. So I knew already from the get it was going to be just a magnetic game. And so I think the best way to explain it was electric. I mean, I think the tension was there, the excitement. You know, they scored fairly early on, so it was 1-0, and then when Pelayo made that game-clinching win, I think that the crowd just erupted. And I think it was one of those moments where, as a fan, and I know that this is going to be a thing that will go down in history for the first time. Not just because they won and they're making, they're the first team to break this kind of long withstanding triumphs of the U.S., but I think it's a marker of how far Latin America and Mexico and other teams have come in the progress of women's sports. So I'm so bummed that you both weren't there, but it sounds like we might get another opportunity later this week as the competition unfolds.
Ooh, so exciting. And I mean, the U.S. women's team was the team to beat for so long.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's what's been exciting is I think for the longest time, the United States was kind of the mark of excellence for women's soccer and sports. And I think now, like you mentioned, the World Cup really changed that. They didn't even make it to the, I think, semifinals and quarterfinals. And you had other teams like Colombia and Spain really for the first time making a global announcement that there is a new wave and a new movement in women's sports that is just so exciting to see.
I know that your work with Drafted, you kind of help amplify Latinas in sports, right? So would you say that the landscape of women in sports has been changing?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think there's a global investment, not just financially for women's soccer, but you have, leagues like Liga MX coming up and getting some incredible names coming out of those teams. You have ESPN and CBS are finally covering these sports live, which we know is important to create that next generation fan and be able to build, our Messis of the world, our LeBron James, And so I think overall it couldn't be a better time to be a woman athlete. It couldn't be a better time to be a fan of women's sports, and it's just going to get bigger and better.
I feel like women in sports too, they're so much more committed. Like, you know, like we hear about men's soccer and it's like, okay, cool, all dramatic, they'll fall. Like these women, I've been to a match myself.
Yeah, they're in it to win.
Dude, like they hit hard. Like they take some serious falls. So it's about time they get the recognition they deserve for all of their hard work. Karina, lastly, who are you rooting for? Like, who should we keep an eye on?
That's tough. So I'm Cuban and Paraguayan. Cuba didn't make it, and I think Paraguay's on their way out as of today. So that leaves me, by default, of course, I've always going to triumph for and want the U.S. to win. But I think as a Latina and somebody who just loves the progress of women's sports, I would love to see Colombia take the win. I would love to see Mexico really use this momentum and make their global stamp on the progress that they had. Or even Brazil. I mean, I think they've also made big strides, and so I'm rooting. I'm keeping an eye on those three teams, and I'm hoping that one of them makes a really strong contention for the title.
Okay, we'll definitely keep an eye on them as this cup finals, as everything continues with these cups. Thank you again, Karina, so much for joining us. Where can we find out more information about what's happening in sports?
Yeah, you can find out on social media, so on We Are Drafted Co, or on TikTok through We Are Drafted, where we're covering all of the stories of Latinas in sports, and of course taking a big interest right now in the Gold Cup.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Take care, Karina.
Dude, we're definitely gonna have to make it to the next match.
I know, dude. Honestly, I like I said, I got FOMO just
Big
hearing
time.
about it. I'm like, I would have loved to be there.
Big time, big time. I'm gonna look at the schedule as soon as
I
we're
know.
done. I'm gonna send that your way so we can buy
Please
these
do.
tickets.